The Cleveland Cavaliers select Evan Mobley.
Has been a historical franchise in this league for years.
We have a trade to announce. The Boston Celtics select Jason Tatum.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We've got a lot of rumors to break down because 'tis the season. But Keith, I'm still a little bit upset that we didn't get a tie last night in the Chargers versus Raiders game. I got to get over that and refocus onto NBA trade rumors because 'tis the season. We're about a month out from the trade deadline.
Yeah, we're exactly a month out as far as the calendar goes. February 10th is the trade deadline, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll use this opportunity to plug. We're going to be going live with Front Office Show. We're still figuring out the timing, but we'll start a little bit before the deadline so we can react to those late deals live, and then we'll go after the deadline, and then we'll probably either come back later that day or the next day with kind of that fresh, like, full look at what all the trades are and all those things. But we're going to have a lot of fun with that. But yeah, man, I wanted the tie too because I wanted the complete chaos and all the anger and everything else. That's, when you don't have a dog in the fight, you're just kind of looking for it to go bananas. I had a little bit of a dog in the fight because I wanted the Pats to play the Bengals. Not only I think that might be a more winnable game, but also then they would not have played at the same time as the Celtics and Bulls on Saturday night. But alas, it'll be a 2 TV night, and we'll figure it out here in the Smith house.
Well, the NBA is starting to pick up in terms of trade talks, and we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. What's happened is essentially so many players have been in health and safety protocols, and teams have been scrambling just to, number one, put a roster out on the floor, be able to play games. That's been the biggest challenge facing NBA general managers. So they haven't been able to focus a lot on making deals. But now that's going to start changing. Now that the clock is ticking here, we're going to see more and more of a push towards trade discussions. And Shams Charania of The Athletic put out a piece today. We're going to be kind of delving into that today, detailing a lot of different discussions around the league. I guess we kind of have to start at the top with Ben Simmons and what's going on with him. That's the piece that is still the key chip that's out there on the board, the guy that a lot of teams are still interested in. We've seen reports that Daryl Morey is still hoping his number one option is to bring Ben Simmons back. I don't know what to make of that. I feel like that's probably more posturing than anything else. But we also got an update on some teams that could be interested. And it sounds like the Hawks are becoming more and more of a real suitor.
I was asleep at the wheel, but I'm going to get it in.
There it is.
There it is.
The Simmons, by popular
siren.
Request.
That's it. People love the Simmons siren. So, found by Googling siren on YouTube. So it's an hour long. Why
an hour long siren
anyone would want to listen to that for an hour? I don't fully understand, but yeah. So what's funny is my daughter does this thing. I promise I'll talk about Ben Simmons in a second. She does those things where there's YouTube videos where it's the same song plays for 1 hour, like it just ends and restarts. And when she gets into a song, she'll just listen to those all day. So I don't really get it. But yeah, Ben Simmons. So this one seems related to the Hawks. There, Shams also mentions in the article, I want to make sure I get the teams right, that the Kings, Trailblazers, Timberwolves, and Pacers are also they engaged and interested. So that's kind of the group of teams that seem like they have been consistent for at least a while now. With the Hawks, I think kind of more coming to the forefront. And what I thought was interesting was this is not reporting, and I think it's getting missed a little bit. He is just saying that scanning the roster himself, it seems like John Collins is the guy and maybe Cam Reddish, and that probably makes some sense just from a value play plus salary piece. You need to have a big salary to be matching, and clearly Philly wants value. That that fit would be a little bit weird for Philly because you already have Tobias Harris, and he's clearly a 4 and not a 3, so that gets a little wonky there unless you've got another deal lined up. But the Collins stuff raised my eyes just from the Hawks side of it. That he had one of the quotes after your Lakers handled the Hawks fairly easily.
Yeah.
Collins said, "I've banged my head on the wall a couple of times trying to figure it out myself. There's really no excuse. All I can say is it's unacceptable. We have to dig down and do the things necessary to win, or this is going to be the result every night." And the Hawks have definitely underachieved this year. They've not played well. Collins feels like his voice is not being heard in the locker room, so that's something that's kind of bears watching. Sometimes when guys get frustrated with that, it's tough. And he's also not getting as many touches and used in the offense as I think some of the other guys have grown. Also mentioned Cam Reddish was mentioned by Shams. There was a report also over the weekend where I believe this one was from Brian Windhorst, had said that there is a belief that the Hawks will trade Reddish versus paying him. So that's interesting. And then the last one is Danilo Gallinari, who is often mentioned in trade talks. He gave an interview to Sky Sports back in his native Italy, where he said, "I hope I stay in Atlanta. I hope I'm not moved, but anything can happen." And the reason Gallinari's get mentioned is, again, big salary, $20.5 million or so. So that's a nice trade matching chip there for salary matching. And then it's only $5 million guaranteed for next year. So it's a kind of a pseudo non-guarantee on that one. So it's or a pseudo expiring, I guess is the better way to put that. So yeah, let's see. I think Simmons to the Hawks makes some sense. I don't know what you do with Clint Capella, because I don't know that that's a group you necessarily can close with both of those guys. But I mean, Trae Young can offset a lot of what Simmons does, and I'm intrigued by the idea, I guess.
Well, and we've talked about this. If you're the Hawks, you're a very motivated team to try to get something done because things have not gone according to plan this season, because they have clearly not lived up to expectations, and they've been one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. They're getting lit up by teams, and Ben Simmons is one of the best defenders, not just at the guard position or whatever position you want to call him at. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA, period. And so getting him would be a natural fit in terms of, hey, our defense is bad. Who's somebody that can help? Ben Simmons would be somebody that could certainly help you in that endeavor.
They're 28th, to your point, by Basketball Reference's use of defensive rating. So that's bad. So really bad.
If you're the Hawks and you're already having concerns about John Collins, if he's getting frustrated and he's got some value out there, maybe you do go ahead and you make a move here. But I also like that distinction that you made. Shams saying, I'm looking at the salaries. That's the same as you or I. Looking at the salaries and saying
that's what we do every day.
Right. These salaries add up to a trade. Shams is not saying, I've heard from the Hawks side, or I've heard out there from an agent or whoever that the Hawks are actively discussing these guys. He's just saying, my best guess, these players would make sense because these salaries line up. So that's important to note. I wouldn't assume that the Hawks are just discussing John Collins for Ben Simmons and this is a full go or anything like that. That's not what we've heard at this point. We've heard the Hawks are interested. Looking at the numbers, that makes sense, but don't take this as this is what's happening right now. This is just kind of putting some numbers together at the moment.
Yeah, and I think you can also look at this as maybe that's the value, but it gets routed to a third team that then delivers the positional fit better to Philadelphia. There could be any number of teams I think would like to have John Collins. He's one of the better rebounders in the league. He shoots with enough range that it matters. He's a good finisher inside. I feel like he showed enough last year in their playoff run that he can play small ball 5. So if you can acquire him and then slide him to the 5 when you need to close small, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, this one definitely my eyebrows are raised to see where could this maybe go with this one, because I think there's definitely a very good player in there. And what does that look like? So yeah, I'm curious, but I do think the Simmons to the Hawks idea is one that has at least some merit to watch. And then those other teams they're the same ones we've been mentioning for months now.
Right.
The Kings, Trailblazers, Timberwolves, and Pacers, all small market teams. They can't necessarily get a guy like this in free agency. So if you can land him via trade, go make it happen. Problem is, other than the Timberwolves or Trailblazers rather, with Damian Lillard, it seems unlikely that those teams have the direct piece to send that Philly wants as far as the value play for Simmons. So that you might have to get a third team involved or something like that.
By the way, I do want to pause here and just mention that we are very appreciative of all the kind words that we got after our last video. We had a lot of people who were chiming in saying they appreciated kind of the format of this show and how we approach things. And I think this is a good example where we're not going to tell you John Collins to the 76ers, this is a done deal, and then make a video that's 8 minutes and 2 seconds long just to make sure we hit that YouTube monetization strategy and do all that kind of stuff. We're going to try to cut through that and tell you, look, we have to be careful here because the rumor is not John Collins for Ben Simmons. You're going to see some people who run with that, but that's not what Sean.
I've seen it today.
Yeah, that's how it's going to get aggregated, but that is not what was actually said here. And so this is another example of kind of our philosophy of how we approach this kind of stuff is we try to cut through that and just give you as close to what's factual as we can without getting too hyperbolic.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. All right. So Shams, in addition, that was kind of the headline piece here. And then he kind of empties out his notebook as he does about once a week or so. Or maybe it'll happen more often here now that we're in trade season, but let's see how that goes. But the Celtics, of note, he says that they've indicated they want to build around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and have no interest of splitting them up. That matches everything we've heard, those of us who cover the team, that they are. He also adds they're open for business around other players on the roster. Same thing. We keep hearing, Dennis Schroeder, Josh Richardson, all sorts of names are available out there, and they're interested. And then he adds they did talk about Ben Simmons with the Sixers, but they have no inclination to move Jaylen Brown. And from Philly side, there's not a whole heck of a lot else on the Boston roster, assuming Jason Tatum, of course, is off the table, that I think would interest them for Ben Simmons. So it would make sense that that's why that didn't go anywhere. And I get it why the Celtics wouldn't do that either, because the last thing this team is already poor in shooting. They don't need to add another non-shooter to the team when they've already got a couple of those that play fairly prominent roles.
Doesn't seem like it's in the cards for the Celtics to land Ben Simmons. I mean, maybe they get involved as a third team or, something like that, I suppose could happen, but it doesn't seem to be a great fit, particularly if the Celtics say, you know what, which is totally fair, we don't want to move Jaylen Brown, we don't want to move Jason Tatum. Okay, that's probably going to take them out of the Ben Simmons race, again, unless they get involved as a third team or something of that nature.
What people say all the time is, could they send something like Horford, Schroeder, and Juancho Hernan-Gomez and picks to a third team that then that third team sends the value to Philly? And what I always say in those things is, why would that third team not just take Simmons for themselves?
Yes, exactly.
Right? Like that's where you got to kind of, those things do happen on occasion, but that's more of a, like I was talking about with Collins, where it's just a weird positional fit that doesn't make sense. That's where you might see a third team get in, or definitely you see third teams get in just as facilitators of, hey, they don't want to eat that salary, we'll eat that salary, and that's how we'll rebalance it there. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. You want to go to the Cavs because this is a quick one.
Yep.
Improving their backcourt. We've been saying this for a while. And they're looking at a package around Ricky Rubio's expiring deal and draft picks, and completely makes sense. Rubio, $17 million expiring contract. That's a nice piece of salary matching in a trade. You have draft picks that you can offer up because clearly Cleveland is no longer in the full-on we're rebuilding phase. This is now the let's start supplementing this team as we move things forward. So my guess is something gets done. We're going to talk about the Pacers in a minute. He mentions that they have talked, not that we were breaking news, just kind of logically looked at some fits about adding Karis LeVert. And I think that is still one that does make some sense for the Cavs, because if That's basically the salary match. If you can make that happen, why not? If you're Cleveland, if it's not going to cost you all that much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly why you take that Rubio contract. Maybe you make something happen with it, add in a pick, something like that, and then you cement your standing in as a playoff team, maybe a playoff power in the Eastern Conference now, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's jump to the Detroit Pistons. Several playoff teams are pursuing star forward Jerami Grant, who right now is out due to injury, should be back within a few weeks here. The Wizards, the Knicks, the Blazers, and Lakers, among others. 27 years old, Jerami Grant. A lot of teams in the NBA are looking for big wings that have a little bit of shooting ability, that are very switchy defensively, have that versatility. So he's going to be in high demand. He's going to be in high demand, but Shams also notes that he's eligible for a 4-year contract extension worth about $112 million this offseason. So that
the reporting is he wants a contract
that
extension too. Yes. Not necessarily that full amount, but he wants in excess of $20 million a year.
So if that's the case, if you're a team that's trading for him, you'd have to know that, number one, he wants to be there long term in order to sign that extension, and that you'd be expected to give him that extension because he does have a little bit of power in this scenario. He's a free agent in 1.5 years, and so he does have the ability to tell a team, hey, I really don't want to go to your particular team. If you trade for me, that's fine. I'll play for you, but I'm going to leave when I'm a free agent. So he can direct his landing spot to some degree if he decides to go that route, but no surprise that a lot of teams are interested in him. Is there a team there of those four mentioned, Knicks, Wizards, Blazers, Lakers, is there a team out there that you think can put together a package that goes beyond what the others can or would put together a package?
Yeah, I think it feels odd for the Blazers. It just doesn't feel like the right kind of move.
Right.
For them, they continue to slip in the Western Conference. I'm trying to pull it up right now, and it's not. My computer's not wanting to load the pit. There it goes. So they're still 11th. They're functionally tied with the Kings, but or the Spurs rather, in the Kings, I guess, for that last play-in spot in the West. It's just, is that really where you want to be? Right. Sean Highkin for Bleacher Report. Sean has covered the Blazers in the past. He wrote a thing about it seems like maybe where Portland should go is to shut Damian Lillard down. We talked about that on a previous show, that maybe is the way to go. So if you're going to do that, then no, you're not, because what are you going to give up? Anthony Simons or Nasir Little? Yeah. Like, that doesn't make sense. That's a bad decision. Like, those are kind of your young guys. Like, I'd get it if you were in 6th or 5th or 4th and trying to make that push into the next tier, sure, but that's not where Portland is. So I'd take them out of the list. Washington, yeah. If it's Washington though, you got to consolidate some of these forwards and send some out, right? Because they've already got way too many. I mean, they've got pretty soon this Wizards team. I was looking at this morning because I was doing some trade deadline prep stuff. This Wizards team. So this is their kind of 4-5 group. Now that Hachimura is back, and they've said Thomas Bryant's going to be back sooner rather than later. So you've got Gafford and Kuzma start, and then you're going to have Bryant, Hachimura, Harrell, Avdia plays some at the 4 on occasion. Davis Bertans, like you'd have to condense some of those guys out. And if I was Detroit, I'd look at it and be like, all right, maybe I'd take a run at Hachimura and see what that looks like. Mm-hmm. If you paid me in picks, I'd happily take on Bertans or somebody, but I can't imagine they're going to trade Kuzma. He's too important to them and been too good. He had a 2020 game last night. I think.
Saw that.
So it just, that one, I can see it from their standpoint. And then the Lakers, makes a ton of sense for the Lakers. Like, I think Jerami Grant would be a wonderful fit. There is probably their best 3-4 on the roster that isn't LeBron James. But I think their challenge becomes, how do you get there? Is Talon Horton-Tucker enough for the Pistons? And what's his fit there? Because they already have Cade Cunningham plus guys they drafted that are that they're already invested in. So that's just where it gets a little wonky fit wise, from that standpoint.
Yeah. And I mentioned this just a little bit ago in a video for Lakers Nation. The Lakers offer, it's not going to go anywhere. It can't change. It is what it is. The Lakers offer has to be, just in terms of doing the math, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Kendrick Nunn, and a veteran minimum, plus whatever you want to add in picks wise or whatever, right? In exchange
which
for,
is limited,
which is very
to some
limited, right?
extent.
They have their earliest first round pick they can trade as of this moment is the 2027 first. They have some second rounders, but that's the package for the Lakers. So if you're the Pistons, you know that offer's not what it is right now. It's going to be the same thing right around the trade deadline. Now you could say, okay, well, maybe who that veteran minimum guy is, that can change, or maybe you can get the Lakers to work something out with the Pelicans and somehow get a second first in 2028 available if you can get them to change the guarantee date or the option on the 2024 or 2025 pick. Right, that's not where we're at right now, though. So the Lakers offer probably isn't going to change much between now and the deadline. So in the meantime, if you're the Pistons, you're just taking in offers and you wait and you see who offers you the best package, because some of these are kind of locked in. They are what they are. But between now and a month from now, you don't know how many other teams might say, hey, we really need a big wing. This is a skill set that's in high demand. So if I'm the Pistons, I'm letting this all play out, and I'm going to wait until the deadline before I make anything happen.
And if I'm the Pistons, if I get to the deadline and I don't get a good enough offer, take it into the summer, take it into next season. It seems like they're one of the teams that could maybe have enough cap space to do something this offseason. So you could really position yourself well there. And maybe you look at it as, you know what? Hey, but could we be next year's Cavs? If Cade Cunningham is better and we have Jerami Grant and add a couple more guys, maybe we're next year's Cavs and we're right in the mix here in the East. So, yeah, no, this is not one where they absolutely have to move Jerami Grant. Like it's, there. This is a real quick one. Houston Rockets. Teams are expressing interest in John Wall should he become free on the market.
Teams want John Wall if they don't have to give up anything to get him.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think that's good, right? I hope as I've said for months now, I want this to resolve one way or another.
Right.
Either he plays for the Rockets or he takes a buyout and moves on. I fully understand why the Rockets have no real interest to, just have him sit at full amount on their books. My guess is this goes the Blake Griffin route. If there's no trade come the trade deadline in that next few weeks before playoff rosters need to be finalized through buyouts, we'll see him, maybe go the Blake Griffin route, get back enough money, get free, and go join a team as, point guard depth there. I want to close it out with the Pacers here for this one. Not a ton of new news in this, but just that teams are ramping up conversations with the Pacers involving Karis LeVert and Myles Turner. As you noted pre-show, what's notable there is not Domantas Sabonis. It seems like he's the one who's going to stick in Indiana and be because they are not bottoming this out. They are not doing a full-scale rebuild. They don't do that. They don't feel like they can do that in that market. So what it looks like they are going to do is reset, probably be bad the rest of this year, but really reset with that one. So I think that becomes interesting. We already mentioned Karis LeVert and the Cavs, but for Turner, the Mavericks and Knicks have talked about Myles Turner. Interesting fit for either one of those teams, as well as the Lakers and the Hornets. Lakers, I mean, if you want, you can re-edit in the Jerami Grant part of the conversation because it's the same thing. It's the exact same conversation. The trade package doesn't change. For them, Hornets, that one makes some sense because, he could fit there. And I think that's been something we've all pieced together for years and years and years, probably so much so that it'll never happen.
It makes too much sense to happen.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think a report like this, we always talk who does this benefit? Well, this benefits the Pacers, right? Get this out there because then, hey, you want Turner or LeVert, you better come and talk now because
how many teams are after him.
Yeah, there's already teams after these guys. So so I think we're I am going to put it at 75% that those two guys are not Pacers by the end of the trade deadline.
That makes sense. Yeah, I like that. This is, I think LeVert to the Cavs still makes a ton of sense. We'll see if it makes enough sense to happen, if that's the route they go. Myles Turner, I think that teams will be interested. I think that his ability to space the floor while still blocking shots is something that will intrigue teams. The rebounding, okay, we can quibble over that for sure. But this is a guy that also makes sense to be on the move. Who's it going to be? The Hornets seems like a really good landing spot for him. He'd be a nice fit there. The Lakers, I mean, I know a lot of Lakers fans want to see a move made, but the Lakers have been pushing so far towards small ball that to do that would be like, okay, hit the brakes. Never mind. Just kidding. We're not going to play small ball anymore. Bring in Myles Turner. So we'll see what winds up happening.
So I
there.
think a guy like Jerami Grant makes a lot more sense because you
Yes.
can play him, AD, LeBron. There's your front court, and then you're small-ish, but you're still big enough to cover whatever you need to cover. Whereas Turner, that gets a little weirder. Then you're basically a traditional team again.
This feels like this report is the Pacers kind of turning on that neon sign. Hey, everybody look. Everybody look. This people are really interested in him. And then by including Lakers, you make that neon sign flash.
Yep.
Right? just to draw that little bit of extra attention. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I do agree though that more likely than not, both those guys are on new teams after the trade deadline.
Just don't think you can go this far where it's like every day their names are out there in something. That it turns into that. I mean, in that Myles Turner interview, I just keep going back to that. I don't want to put words in his mouth because he did not say this, but to me, the things he said, he is very ready for a fresh start. So somewhere else where he can, either be on a team that's contending or he's playing a bigger role, ideally both, with that. And as I've said before, which oddly enough got aggregated, by a couple different places, it's not crazy to say he's far more plug and play than Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis is a guy you need to kind of have as an offensive fulcrum. You're going to run a lot of stuff through him. You're going to do a lot of things, and that's fine because he's very, very good. But Turner is a guy just about any team. I mean, we just talked how he'd fit on all those teams because you could just throw him on all those teams and just ask him to do what he does. Block shots on defense as a help guy, space the floor and dive to the rim. There it is. That's what he is. So yeah, well, we'll see.
Okay, well, let's wrap things up there. We will be back later today. We're going to break down some rumors, some rumblings involving Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz. Is he staying there long term? A trade that actually went down in the NBA over the weekend. We're going to get to that a little later today, so be on the lookout for that video. Make sure you guys are following Keith on Twitter at KeithSmithNBA. You can find me at Trevor_Lane. Till then, see ya and stay safe.